we are going to be talking about building a business while managing your mental health. This is going to cover mental health, entrepreneurship, burnout, boundaries, and sustainability. Hi, welcome in. My name is Jamie. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's degree in Christian counseling of substance abuse and addictive disorders. Completed my internship for my addiction counseling license at Arizona State Prison. And I did that for almost 2 years. Moved to work with kids who were DCF involved or CPS involved, children and family services. I did that for about 9 months before moving on to working in a group home with dually diagnosed clients. That means they had addiction and mental health issues at the same time. I did that before having a midlife crisis and realizing I wanted to write full time. And then the next thing you know, here I am on TikTok being a creator and starting a creator network. Still very extremely passionate about mental health, and I advocate for mental health. I thought that I would tie that into some of the things that I do now. First things first, we are going to talk about, this is just a very specific episode for entrepreneurs, but also like making sure that as entrepreneurs, we're taking care of our mental health. This is for the entrepreneurs, the creatives, the founders, the advocates, the freelancers, somebody, whoever you are, who's building something meaningful while also managing their mental health. This is not the highlight reel of entrepreneurs. We're going to kind of get into the nitty gritty. Not going to talk about hustle culture being the solution, but we're also not the kind of people who are going to tell you just to push through or sleep when your sleep is a crutch. Let's just say that. We are going to be basically discussing how building a business or being an entrepreneur can affect your mental health. If you've ever wondered what it's like to build a business, it's not easy. I want to talk today to the people that are building businesses with anxiety, trauma histories, depression, nervous systems that don't magically shut off at 5 p.m. Some of us, our brains never stop. If you've ever wondered if it's actually possible to build a business without sacrificing your stability, this is for you. Today we're talking about what it really looks like to build a business when your mental health is part of the equation, not something you can ignore, bypass, or out hustle. Okay, we're going to talk about burnout, about self-care that actually works, about boundaries that protect your energy and your livelihood, and about building something sustainable, something that isn't going to cost you your mental health in exchange for success or the success that you are seeking. I'm going to say this up front. This is not a hustle culture episode. Okay, that's not the focus or the intention of this. This is not a mindset fixes everything episode. This is not motivational fluff. This is realism. This is a realism discussion. This is a nervous system aware episode. And I want to tell the truth so people stop blaming themselves. So take a breath, get comfortable, and let's talk about mental health entrepreneurship. Mental health and entrepreneurship. The next thing I want to cover is I am no longer a licensed therapist, and I could not be your therapist even if I was. Everything we say here today is going to be just Jamie's opinion and her thoughts and just an open discussion. If you find yourself in crisis, then I highly encourage you to dial 988 if you are in the US or Canada, or findahelpline.org if you are outside of the US or Canada. So let's talk about the reality of mental health and entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship is not something that's easy. Like, I think this is something a lot of people think that just because you're home, especially if you have a home-based business, like you have time on your hands. Like, no, I don't. Sometimes I don't even have time to do the things I want to do. I have to like write it in the calendar. Even without mental health challenges, building a business can involve uncertainty, pressure, financial risk, decision fatigue, and emotional labor. It takes a toll, okay? You wake up in the morning and it's not like you can just call out to work, because for some of us, this is our livelihood. If I don't show up, I'm not going to make come, or I'm not going to be doing the revenue generating things that I need to do. Even without mental health challenges, building a business involves uncertainty, pressure, financial risk, decision fatigue, and emotional labor. Now, I want you to add into that anxiety, trauma, depression, recovery, neurodivergence, all of those things. Okay? All of those things. Now the experience isn't just hard, it's amplified. Okay, so now it's not just hard, it is amplified. Again, when you add an anxiety, trauma, depression, recovery, neurodivergence to having your own business, it becomes complicated, it becomes complex. Experience is not just hard, it's amplified. It's, like I said, complex. And I want to be very clear about something. That amplification, that's not a personal flaw. It's not a lack of discipline, and it's not because you're bad at business, all right? It's because your nervous system is already working harder just to exist. So when you live with a mental health condition, or even if you don't have a mental health condition, like having a business can cause some stress. It can cause depression. It can be a roller coaster. Some days you're way up here and some days you're way down here. When you have a business, your baseline stress load is higher. And then if you have a mental health condition or you're neurodivergent, like your baseline is going to be even more complicated. Your emotional processing is going to be deeper and your threat detection system might be a little more sensitive. Business is not going to turn those things off. It's going to actually magnify it. So having a business is already stressful, but having a business and being neurodivergent or being in recovery or struggling with mental health is going to make it more complicated, which is going to require a more delicate balance. Many entrepreneurs with lived experience are like addiction, recovery, mental health, trauma, whatever. They're incredibly intuitive, they're empathetic, and those same traits, that empathy, that insight, that emotional depth, those are often the exact traits that put you at a higher risk for burnout. Because we tend to absorb things like a sponge. We tend to take on more, especially if your business is helping others, right? So one of my struggles as a therapist was if I was helping others, I would sometimes vicariously take on their trauma. And it was very hard for me. And I had to have my own therapist so that I could process those things so it wouldn't affect me as a therapist. Now, as a business owner, I've had a hard time delegating things to people because I'm like, I need it to be perfect. And then somebody told me last week, Jamie, if you wait until you have XYZ, you're going to be so overwhelmed. You're not going to know where to start. And I really sat with that to think about it. And I was like, you know what? Absolutely right. If I wait too long, I'm going to be more overwhelmed than I already am. If your work is personal, which I very much like to personalize my work, I treat both of the things that I do, both of my businesses, whether it's helping you write a book or helping you figure out how to make money going live, that is a very personalized experience that I try to offer for everyone. People get one-on-one with me. People can book appointments with me. We really go over strategy. I know their stories. I know if somebody is struggling emotionally. And so I have to still find a way to balance that because I think that I'm doing something out here that is different, but I also have to make sure that I'm taking care of me. And I care so deeply about the impact that we as a community, my community, can make on others, whether it's helping them grow or build confidence. This quiet myth that professionalism means emotional neutrality, and that's not true. You cannot be emotionally reactive, but that doesn't mean that things don't emotionally affect you. If you struggle with mental health, you're somehow less capable of leading or building. That's not true. That's not true. You might be an amazing leader. And a lot of times people can be really successful and even hide that they have a mental health condition because they mask. They cover that up. They don't want the world to see that that's what's going on. False. The myth that professionalism means emotional neutrality and that if you struggle with mental health, you're less capable of leading or building. And the reason that's a myth, that's not only false, it's harmful, right? Because we want people to find their best selves and being productive, whatever that may look like for them. Mental health challenges don't disqualify you from entrepreneurship, but they do require a different approach. And I say this as somebody who's speaking from experience. You have to be very rooted in awareness instead of denial. You have to be very aware of the fact that, am I taking this personal or am I just being a little sensitive? Is it that deep? Is it about me? especially when you're in content creation, right? Especially when you're going live, right? Because the internet, especially TikTok, can be a very brutal place. A different approach is one that is rooted in awareness, in regulation instead of constant urgency, and in sustainability instead of survival mode. Anybody can experience burnout. Burnout is one of the most misunderstood and most minimized experiences in entrepreneurship. We need to talk about it. We need to talk about it. Burnout is not just being tired, okay? It's not just having a bad week. It's not just a temporary lack of motivation. Burnout is emotional exhaustion that does not resolve even when you get rest or sleep or take a break or whatever you do. Cognitive fog, it's detachment from work you once cared about. It's feeling indifferent about things that you once cared about. Physical symptoms, sometimes it manifests as physical symptoms that sometimes you can't explain. Sometimes burnout looks like numbness. Sometimes it looks like avoidance. And sometimes it looks like suddenly resenting the business you worked so hard to build. And I say this because that was me. That was me in 2025. Burnout hits mental health centered entrepreneurs very differently. And I say this because now I'm in a place where I feel like if I fail me, I'm failing everybody. Now I know that's not true, but when I am burned the fuck out, you could convince me that it's true. When your work is tied to your lived experience, there's often no clear line between work and self. Not just managing tasks, you're managing emotional labor. You're holding space. You're showing up as a human being and not just a brand. There's a particular kind of burnout that comes from turning your healing, your insight, or your advocacy into your income. It can be exhausting to talk about deep topics. It can be mentally draining to talk about deep topics sometimes. You feel pressure to be regulated all the time. Like, I have caught myself on someone else's lives being like, I have to be filtered because I have to be professional. And I'm afraid sometimes to just be human and, say, oh my God, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard because I don't want to offend somebody. And that can be taxing because it's like, I just want to be who I am. And I want to pride myself on being authentic. Authenticity is really something people appreciate so much. You also will feel obligated to model healing perfectly all the time, or to never have off days. And this is something I've struggled with. I'm kind of getting over, but sometimes it's like I've got to show up and put on my work face, even though I don't feel like doing that. That can lead to pressure, and that pressure can be unsustainable because eventually you are going to crack. Eventually you're going to crack. And it's your system is saying, something here is costing you too much emotionally. Something here is costing you entirely too much. Ignoring the feeling that something is costing you too much is not going to make you stronger. It's not going to make you accomplish more. It actually just makes you crash harder. It makes the collapse harder. It makes the fall harder. How do we overcome that? Well, this ties into self-care, and we're going to talk about self-care that can actually work for you. Let's talk about self-care, real self-care, okay? Real self-care, not shopping, not eating till you're in oblivion, okay? Actual self-care. We're not going to talk about the Instagram version of self-care. We are not going to talk about aesthetics, okay? We're not going to be like, buy another planner and start your day at 5 a.m. No, we're going to talk about actual self-care. Self-care in entrepreneurship is not glamorous. It is structural, but it is also something that you have to do. I don't want to say it's mandatory, but it should be. It should be. Because if you're not taking time for self-care, you cannot pour from an empty cup. I say this all the time. Real self-care looks like building your business around your capacity, not your idealized potential. Okay. What are you capable of doing? Not what is the potential for what you can do. It looks like fewer launches with better execution. It looks like more well-planned things. Buffer days. You've got to build in buffer days into your schedule. I am learning how to time block, and I'm giving myself an extensive amount of time to do certain things. Today I allotted 2 hours for this live. Okay. And then after this, I have pretty much an open afternoon to do anything else I want, but I want to be structured from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. every single day. And then the rest of that day, my buffer. Now, there's going to be days where I have to start at 10 a.m. instead of 6 a.m. And I'll have to rework that buffer, but that's okay. To have to build buffer days into your schedule. If I have a meeting, I like to schedule time between meetings. What if that meeting runs over? What if I need to prepare for the meeting? Stuff like that. Recovery time should be treated as non-negotiable, not optional. When I had a job, when I worked in retail and we went on vacation, we had such a good time. I forgot I had a job the entire time that I was on vacation. You have to do the same thing. When you have a business, you have to do the same thing with that business. You have to treat it like it doesn't exist for the time you're away. And that is, for me, that is something that's very hard to let go of, because I kind of feel like I need to be in the know all the time. Self-care might mean saying no. And no is a complete sentence. Self-care might mean saying no. You might be able to technically handle something, but mentally or emotionally, it might be draining. You have to learn to say no, even when it sounds like something you want to do. And if you really, really, really feel like you have to do it, then you need to say, this is something I'm open to, but I'm going to have to put it in my schedule. I can't do it at this time, but I can do it at this time. And I say that as somebody who bites off more than I can chew constantly. Constantly. It might mean that you grow a little bit slower than you want to. I started this TikTok creator network, and I also wanted to still go live every day. And last week I said, you know what? That's not possible. Not right now. Not while we're still not generating a whole lot of revenue, right? You have to be willing to accept that your growth may not happen at your pace, right? I can't go live every single day and run an agency and still handle stuff at home and still, do other things that I need to do. I spent 2 hours yesterday cleaning out my closet. I've been needing to clean out that closet for like 3 weeks. The last time I started cleaning it, I was trying to procrastinate on running payroll. And now I'm like, you know what? No, I'm going to just time block it in. I'm going to spend 2 hours cleaning my closet. And that's what I'm going to do. And there may come a time where I can live stream every day and run an agency. But right now, my live streams are going to be pop-ups and my regularly scheduled live streams. Starting next week, I will be live on Tuesdays with my mental health talks. We'll be back to a regular every week mental health talk. Those are the days I know I can commit to. Thursday and Friday morning, I do a co-working live. I just pop on the iPad. We sit here, we listen to the TikTok party music, and we work. The rest of the time, I either have to do a pop-up live or just stick to that schedule, because consistency is what matters. You don't have to be every day. Yes, every day helps, but it doesn't have to be done every day. I have to make sure that I am not trying to grow too fast in one place and letting everything burn in another. And I like to use this analogy of Thanksgiving, where we cut the turkey, or we're cooking the turkey, right? But if we get so busy making all the sides while the turkey's cooking, that turkey's going to burn and we're going to ruin it and we're going to lose it, right? If I get so busy making all the sides, my main gig is going to get burned. So that is why we have to be willing to accept that maybe we can't grow as fast as we want to. And just because this person or that person did it that quickly doesn't mean you have to or that you can. Because some things are just luck of the draw. Some things are life circumstances. And some things are just happen for people. Overnight fame is not the norm. It's the exception. Overnight success is not the norm. It is the exception. Truth is, if your self-care only happens outside of work, but your work is actively causing you emotional dysregulation, something has to change. Something has to change. And that change has to start with you, and that change has to start with no, or questioning, is this something I can do right now? Not, am I capable of it? Is it something I can emotionally do right now? Self-care that works is boring, okay? But it's necessary. Self-care that works is boring, but it's necessary. Sometimes, especially somebody like me who chaos is normal for me, saying no and taking time for me can be really boring, but it's necessary. It has to be predictable. It has to be repetitive. It might feel monotonous, but boring is sustainable. Boring is sustainable. Now, moving on from self-care, we're going to talk about boundaries. Okay, we need to talk about boundaries. Boundaries are going to be the skills that saves you. Boundaries are going to be what helps you with your self-care. Boundaries are not optional. Whether you're a business person, whether you're just a regular person, whether you have a job, whether you're a mom, a partner, boundaries are not optional. Boundaries are especially not optional if you are in mental health, if you do entrepreneurship, or if you're in the medical field in general. Let's just say the medical field in general, okay? They are a survival skill. Boundaries are not about being cold or unavailable. They are about being clear on who you are, what you can do, what you will accept. Boundaries protect your time, your energy, and your emotional capacity, and ultimately your ability to keep showing up. Because if you don't set boundaries, you're going to find yourself not wanting to show up. If you have ever been so overwhelmed that you would rather just crawl back into bed, you probably needed to set a boundary. Boundaries protect your time, your energy, and your emotional capacity, and your ability to keep showing up. And some of us have to show up in more than one place, right? I have to show up for my creators. I have to show up for the mentors of those creators. I have to show up for my staff. I have to show up for my family. I've got to show up for my kids. I got to show up for a lot of different things. And my emotions are going to affect how I show up. Am I going to be irritable and pissy because I'm overwhelmed? Or am I going to be happy and enjoying my time and not stressed out because I learned to say no or pace things out? You need boundaries around your time. You need boundaries around your time. You need boundaries around your emotional labor. You need boundaries around your emotional labor, and you need boundaries around your access to you. I recently decided that for the creators, I'm going to give out a number that is specific to creator issues for violations. I'm only going to respond to text messages, emails, and phone calls unless it's urgent after 2 p.m. every day, because that's when I have time. Because if I do that all day long, I can't get anything done. And today's day one of trying that. And you know what? Nobody's tested that theory yet, but it's going to be tested. So I'm going to start making this a habit where I am not constantly picking up my phone and allowing other people to interrupt me while I am doing things that are important for my business, for myself, for my family. I can call people back. I can text people back, but now I'm going to give it a designated time. You need boundaries around your time. You need boundaries around your emotional labor. You need boundaries around access to you. You need boundaries around your identity and who you are. Because if you don't set those boundaries and you let other people tell you who you should be and what you should do, you're going to stop being authentic. You're allowed to decide when you respond. You're allowed to say, that is outside of my scope. That is not something I can do. No. No is a complete sentence. N-O period is a complete sentence. You are allowed to not make decisions if you are emotionally dysregulated. You know what? I'm not having a very good day, so I'm going to table this until I'm in a better mindset. Because I can tell you I've never made a good decision while I was emotionally reactive. Never. I've never made a good decision while I was emotionally reactive. You do not owe unlimited accessibility to anyone at the cost of your stability, at the cost of your business, at the cost of your family, at the cost of your mental health, at the cost of yourself, at the cost of who you are. You do not owe unlimited accessibility to you, to anyone. If your boundaries feel uncomfortable, that does not mean they're wrong. It means you're breaking patterns that once kept you safe, but now they cost too much. It is okay to break patterns and habits that do not suit you, that do not benefit you, that do not help your mental health. Like, that is the thing. Everything always comes back to boundaries. Everything. I swear it does. Now, how can you build a sustainable business? All right. So let's recap just a little bit. building a business and the effect on your mental health. All of those things matter. If you see what I've done here, we have led what is the problem, what can happen with that problem, and how do we solve it? Okay, the problem is you don't want to get burned out. You don't want your mental health to be affected by what you are doing to build your business. So you've got to make sure you're doing self-care and that you're setting boundaries so that you can avoid burnout, so that your mental health stays intact. And that doesn't mean something is not going to still throw you off kilter, but that's not what we're going to focus on. You can build a sustainable business once you learn to practice self-care and boundaries. A sustainable business is one that works with your nervous system, not against it. If you are feeling, I'll use an example from my real life. I wanted to have a blog published every single day for a year. I cranked out like 100 articles in a couple of weeks, and I pre-scheduled them. And I think they went from like July all the way to October. But I did it for so long that even by the time none were auto posting anymore, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Why? Because I did too much. I didn't pace myself. So then I was like, I don't want to do this at all. This is boring. This is stupid. It's monotonous. And I know that my brain, I have to change things up every so often. So I'm going to try to say on today, I'm going to finish cleaning my closet and I'm going to film a whole bunch of videos. Tomorrow, I'm going to start cleaning my little area in the bathroom and decluttering. And then I'm going to edit those videos. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to start decluttering other things that I don't need anymore. And I'm going to pre-schedule those videos. Because if I do all of those things in one day so that I have content for an entire month, I'm not going to have content once it runs out because I'm going to be fucking tired of looking at my phone. But if I spread it out and I pace it out, it's manageable and it doesn't feel overwhelming and I'm not burned out on it. Especially because once I start doing something, I cannot stop. And so I'm going to learn to take that focus and refocus every so often. So I stop getting bored with those things. So I stop getting overwhelmed with those things. Ask yourself, does my business rely on urgency? Mine does to some degree. If somebody loses their live access, they need to be able to contact me within a couple of hours. That's fair. Within reason, right? Not at 2 a.m. Not at 2 a.m. If somebody needs me to proofread something, I have to look at it and see how extensively they need work done so I can give them a timeline so I can tell them I can have this back to you by X day. So it does somewhat rely on urgency, but is it so urgent that I need you to call me every time you have a question? Is it so urgent that you need 24/7 access to me? And this is one of my favorite things. I know a lot of people don't like text messaging, but one of my favorite things about text messaging is you don't have to answer immediately. So if I'm off doing stuff and then I come back and I'm like, oh look, my son just texted me, he wants to know what I'm doing. Well, that's not so important, I can answer it right now. But when I'm sitting down to go to the bathroom or when I'm taking a break, I can go, oh, let him know what I'm doing. You know what, son, I'm actually live right now, so let me text you back. Does my business rely on urgency? Does it punish rest? Not what I do now. I've had jobs before that have punished rest. You ever called out to a job because you were sick and they made you feel guilty for calling out? I used to feel guilty if I didn't feel well enough to do my work in my home-based business. And I finally realized if you don't feel good, you're doing yourself a disservice by forcing yourself to do things anyway. Because guess what? You're still going to get sick. You're still going to be sick. Now you just might be sick longer. And then everything's going to build up and you're going to feel overwhelmed. So you have to pace yourself. If what you do, if your business, your job, whatever punishes you when you rest, you have to re-examine if that is what you should be doing. Does your business collapse if you slow down? Mine won't. My growth might slow, but if my growth is excessive at the cost of my mental health, that's not really worth it, right? And we're going to go back to this, and I'm actually, Tina, I'm going to call you out here, but not in a bad way, okay? Because like something you said has really stuck with me, and that's why this is on my heart today. I said that I wanted to implement mentors after I had 50 creators. And Tina said, Jamie, I don't think you can wait that long. And I was kind of like, am I doing that bad of a job? But then I was like, no, that's not at all how she meant it. She meant like, you are so busy taking care of everyone else. What about you? What about you, Jamie? What about you? And so I took that to heart. I had to sit on it for a couple days and I was like, how am I going to do this? Because I can't pay people right now. I want to, but we're not there yet. And so I talked to a couple of the people that have the potential to be leaders. And I said, hey guys, I need to implement some mentors because I can't do it by myself. I didn't want to ask for help. I did not want to ask for help. But you know what? Every single person said, you know what, Jamie? We're going to help you out. And I know this is making me teary-eyed, but it's because for the first time in my life, I can ask for help and I feel supported. I feel supported. And I feel so blessed to have that support. I can't believe it's just, and that is positive. That is constructive criticism. Jamie, I don't think you can wait. And she was absolutely right. And you know what? I feel so much better knowing that already people are stepping up and showing up for me, because it's like, oh my God, I feel a sigh of relief. Oh my God, I don't have to do everything myself. So that's why this was so on my heart today to speak about how building a business can take a toll on your mental health. And if you are afraid to ask for help, you are doing not only yourself a disservice, but your business a disservice. It is okay to not be okay doing every damn thing. And that was such a meaningful lesson for me. Ultimately, if the answer to does my business rely on urgency, does it punish rest, and does it collapse if I slow down? If the answer to any of those questions is yes, that is not a moral failing, that's a design issue. And that was the thing Tina was telling me without telling me, you have a design issue, Jamie. How can you fix it? And that's what we did. That's what I did. And thank you, Tina, for that. It has to be sustainable. And the design issue that I had in my head was not sustainable. Sustainability looks like systems instead of constant spontaneity. In my sub-only group right now, we are talking about the 4-hour work week, which is not how to work only 4 hours a week, okay? It's about delegating things, creating systems for things, and streamlining things so you can get more of your time back, okay? So you can get more of your time back. And I decided that was what I wanted to start with my subscribers, because that's what I want to do. And I want to do this with them. I don't want to teach them to do it. I want to go through the process with them. We can have the struggles together, because I was struggling with sustainability and I didn't see it. Someone else had to tell me. Sustainability looks like systems instead of constant spontaneity. And if I've learned anything in life, it is every time I'm spontaneous, I live to regret it. So we are not, Jamie's doing away with that. We can be spontaneous about taking the dogs on a walk. We can be spontaneous about decluttering shoes. We cannot be spontaneous when it comes to making important decisions or running a business. We have to be thoughtful and intentional in what we do. We need to have clear offers instead of endless customization, meaning I can customize certain things for my clients, whether they need me to edit videos, edit a book. I can customize certain things, but I cannot customize every single thing for every single person. And if I'm going to customize, they have to pay a premium. They have to, if you need that rush urgent done today, you have to pay a premium, because my time is valuable. Okay. I need to stop selling myself short when it comes to providing customer service. You can run a business and still set boundaries and say, no, I can't do that. And if they can find it cheaper somewhere else, that's okay. It's not personal to you. They just can't, they don't want to pay you what you feel you are valued. Recurring income where possible. Okay. Sustainability looks like systems instead of constant spontaneity, clear offers instead of endless customization, recurring income where possible, and delegation before collapse. Not delegating can cause a lot of problems. Now, before I started the agency, I had a personal assistant. And my biggest issue was I was stuck in the cycle where my business is debt-free and I don't have a business loan for it. So I can only pay my assistant what I am able to pay out of pocket or out of whatever revenue is generated from my business income. So I only have her 10 hours a week. I have enough work for like 3 personal assistants, but just having one has helped me a lot. And I can't wait to have her full time. It's going to 2026. She's going to be here full time, but delegating even a few things to her lightens my load. Delegating stuff to mentors so they can mentor creators and duplicate what I do. It lifts the weight off of me because it's a trust issue. When you don't want to delegate things, for me, it's a trust issue. It's not a control issue. It's a trust issue. Can they do as good of a job as me? It doesn't matter if they can or not. That's my job, is to teach them. My real question should be, can they handle constructive criticism? Can they handle feedback? Can I handle theirs? Are they somebody whose word I would trust when they come back to me and say, Jamie, this isn't working. I think you need to do this instead. My biggest mission statement is, we are different than every other business, every other corporation out there. You are heard. You are heard. My bottom line is not more important than us being successful together. Now, my bottom line is important because my business collapses without it, but it's not so important that I devalue something somebody comes back to me and says. I feel like constructive criticism should be a two-way street. If I'm able to tell you what you need to do better, you should be able to tell me what I could do better or what you think I could do better, even if we don't agree. Business that only works when you're running on adrenaline is not a sustainable business. A business that only works when you're running on adrenaline is not sustainable. You will crash and burn. You don't need to do less. You need to do what your system can support long term. You don't need to do more either. You need to start off with baby steps. I wanted to try this, and I wanted to try that, and I wanted to try this. And I finally said, you know what? I'm going to focus on two things: content creation and the agency, and writing my blog maybe twice a month. And then everything else can just happen when it happens. Because if I'm trying to write every day and be a mom and be a teacher and be a mentor and be an agency person and this person and that person, I'm all over the place. I'm all over the place. And it's kind of like, okay, so I'm ADHD, right? And I use this as an example because all of those things, this is how I emotionally feel. Okay, I get up and I'm like, oh my God, we need toilet paper in the bathroom. I go to the pantry where we keep the toilet paper and I grab it. And then I realize, oh my God, there's no fucking towels. So now I need to go do laundry. So I go and start a load of laundry. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm out of laundry soap. So then I have to go to the grocery store and get laundry soap. And now I've just bought a whole bunch of fucking shit I didn't need. Or I went ahead and did my grocery shopping and I came home and we unpacked. And then I'm like, I got to do dinner. Oh, but the pan I want to use is dirty. So I got to put it in the dishwasher. I'm exhausted at the end of the day and it looks like I haven't done a damn thing. But listen to all those things I did. That's why I started focusing on one thing at a time. I'm going to focus on two things: my newsletter twice a month and my content creation for TikTok and my creators. Those are in the same to me though, because if I'm doing this and I'm doing that and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, I'm not seeing any progress. But if I focus on two things and I master them and then I incorporate a third thing, that's better, right? So that's why earlier when I said I was working on my closet yesterday and I'm going to finish it today, and then I'm going to work on my bathroom counter, which my bathroom counter does not look too bad right now, but I do have some things I can declutter, get rid of, I don't like. Why are they fucking sitting here? Okay. And then I'm going to go and work on, I'm going to edit some videos. And then tomorrow I'm going to pre-schedule some videos. And then on Thursday, I'm going to write out some more scripting, right? The reason I'm breaking that up is because it's more manageable than when I try to sit it down and do it all in one session. And it's the same thing with my business. Okay, enough about me. You don't need to do less. You need to do what your system can support long term. And it's kind of like the snowball effect. Do one thing. Get that ball rolling. And then as you grow, the snowball can grow, right? I know that's probably not a very good example, but we talked about burnout. We talked about the reality of mental health and entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is hard. It is not easy. And when you include anxiety, trauma, depression, recovery, neurodivergence, other jobs, kids, other responsibilities, it can be extremely overwhelming. And this is not something wrong with you. This is you have to learn how to manage these better. And it's not a lack of discipline. It's maybe you need to put some things in place. And those things that we need to talk about putting in place is avoiding burnout and what leads to burnout. Burnout can look like numbness, cognitive fog, indifference, not wanting to do what you need to do for your business, etc., etc. Okay. When work is tied to your lived experience, there can sometimes be no clear line between work and self, especially if you're a home-based business. Okay, so we discussed that a little bit too. You're not just managing tasks, you're managing emotional labor, and you're holding space, and you're showing up as a human being, not just a brand. Okay, so you have to make sure to avoid burnout, that when you start seeing, excuse me, not just managing tasks, you're managing emotional labor, you're holding space, and to make sure that you don't have too much pressure, because too much pressure is unsustainable and will cause burnout. And then we went into self-care, because we're going to talk about burnout. We have to talk about how to prevent burnout. And we talk about how self-care is not glamorous, and it can be boring, and it can be repetitive, and it can be monotonous, but it is absolutely necessary. It is absolutely necessary, because slower growth is going to do more for you than fast growth and a crash and burn. Slow, steady growth is better for you than a crash and burn. Then we talk about boundaries and how boundaries tie into self-care, right? Because without boundaries, you can't do self-care. If you can't say no, then how are you going to have time to do self-care? Boundaries are not optional when it comes to entrepreneurship. Boundaries are a survival skill. Boundaries are not about being unavailable. They are about being clear. They're about being intentional. Boundaries protect your time, they protect your energy, and they protect your emotional capacity. And they protect your ability to keep showing up. You need boundaries around time, you need boundaries around emotional labor, and you need boundaries around access to you. And we covered that. We covered how Jamie realized Jamie was trying to do too much. You do not owe unlimited accessibility to anybody at any time. You can schedule when to check your email. You can schedule when to check your text messages, and you can schedule when to check your phone calls. Just because you have something on you that people can access you with 24 hours a day does not mean you have to be available 24 hours a day. Boundaries are not a failure of compassion. They are how compassion becomes sustainable. And if your boundaries feel uncomfortable, that doesn't mean they're wrong. It means you are breaking patterns, and you are breaking patterns that are going to cost you too much if you don't break them. Okay. So we talked about building a sustainable business. Now those are all the things that are going to help you build a sustainable business, but also keep your mental health intact. If you feel like you're failing, and I'm not saying you are, but if you feel like you're failing, you're not failing because you need rest. You're not behind because you move slower, and you are not broken because your mental health might require some accommodation. The goal is not to build a business despite all of those issues. The goal is to build one that respects those issues. Burnout is information. Burnout is information. It is telling you something is costing you too much. Boundaries are business tools. Boundaries are how you are setting yourself up for success. Boundaries are how you don't take on too much. Boundaries are how you avoid burnout. Self-care is a structure, not an aesthetic. It is, I said earlier, I don't think it's mandatory, but it should be. Okay? If you do not take care of yourself, who's going to take care of you? If you do not take care of yourself, who's going to take care of you? Is it going to be the 13 projects you took on that you knew you should have only accepted one of? And sometimes we have to eat humble pie. I'm going to piggyback on that and say, last year, I took on a client project, and because I had worked with this client before, I didn't even look at it. I just said, yep, and agreed to the price and agreed to the project. And then 2 weeks into the project, I was only 10 pages into this edit because it needed to be self-edited. And I had agreed to a specific price, and I was like, what the fuck am I doing? This is taking me hours. It is not worth it. I left what I had done, and I had to eat a piece of humble pie and say, lesson learned. It cost me 2 weeks of my time. And I had to send it back to the client and say, this isn't ready for me to look at. This, in the nicest way possible, is a mess. I am not going to charge you for the 2 weeks I just spent correcting it, but I've made enough corrections that you should be able to see what you need to adjust. And I had to eat a piece of humble pie because it was like a $300 job, but with the amount of edits it needed, it should have been 3 times that much. And it was my fault for not looking at what I was accepting. And I learned from that. Don't ever agree to something until you look at the damn thing first, because you might agree to something and say, fuck no. And you've already agreed to a different price. Luckily, I had worked with that client enough that even though they were irritated, they understood. Success that costs you your mental health is not success. It is not success. If you have everything you ever wanted in life, but you are miserable because you are overwhelmed or you're depressed or you're stressed out, is it really worth it? That's not for me to answer, right? For myself, I know it's not worth it. But you have to think about that for yourself. If what I said here resonated, I want you to know you're not alone, okay? Everything I say here, I've been through, I've experienced, I've done, I'm guilty of. Every single thing. I don't say this from a place of I'm better than you. I say this from a place of please don't do the same things I did. Or please know that if you did do those things, it's not too late to self-correct. And the biggest thing I want to say, be open to criticism, even if it hurts your feelings, as long as it is said nicely and tactfully. Because sometimes you don't see what other people see and they are trying to tell you something that you're missing because you're so close to the project. You're not doing things wrong. You're just still finding your way. You are not doing things wrong. You are just still trying to find your way. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for listening to me. And I want to thank you for choosing sustainability over burnout. All right. Thank you guys again so much. If you have topics you want to hear about in the future, definitely shoot me a message. I am more than happy to talk about them. I like to cover social issues, mental health, recovery, and business stuff. And sometimes, however, all those things can tie together. I don't cover religion and I don't cover politics. That's it. Everything else is fair game.